right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Denali. This is our special webinar for the value of reports that we're running today. The one today is specifically on the simplicity of advanced reporting, no Excel required. So we're going to be talking about how you can run the specific reports and the different customizing options you have in Denali for running financial statements and reports. My name is Jeremy Beislein. I am a trainer here at Cougar Mountain Software. I'm going to be your presenter today, so hopefully I'll give you a good show. Okay, so today's topics today, we're going to be talking about the Denali reporting options and how you can use Denali rather than Excel, Denali versus Excel for running your reports. Also, we're going to talk about how you can use Denali working with Excel. There are some great features in Denali where you can export your information to Excel. We'll be talking about the Denali report groups that are the standard groups that are a part of the account setup. We'll be talking about the account filter to filter out accounts that you don't want to show up on the reports. We're going to kind of do a quick preview of the advanced report groups. We've already done a webinar on that that gives more detail, but I'm going to do a quick overview of that today to show you how you can use the advanced report group codes to set up the specific information you want on your reports instead of having to export the information to Excel to get that information. And then we'll talk about how Denali allows you to create your own custom report layouts and designs using the Crystal Reports program. And after that, we'll go ahead and answer your questions with the time we have left, and we'll get wrapped up here. So it'll be about 30 minutes today. All right, so Denali Advanced Report, the reporting options. First thing we want to talk about is how you can use Cougar Mountain with the Microsoft Excel application in order to use Excel and the custom features in Excel, the formulas and things like that, to get the information you want and in a report format that you specifically want. So let's switch over to my Denali install here. Denali has a couple of options. The first option is real simple. When you're running a report, such as a revenue and expense report, let's see, we'll just run it for one fund so it's not so big. And we'll run it for period 1 through 12 or 13 for our first year. When you run this report, our simple detailed report, a lot of those who use Denali knows how this report looks, but this is just a real basic report, revenues, expenses, and then your total revenue over expenses. I ran it for just the administration fund. I'm using the nonprofit fund suite in this example here. It works the same in the for-profit. It lists out all the GL income revenue accounts with the total and the expense accounts with the total expenses. Then we have our net income or excess revenue over expenses at the bottom. This report can also be printed directly to Excel. If we run the report again, we just select text file. This is one example of how you can use Excel, or how you can use Denali and send the report to Excel and bring up the same report, the same look, the same design and format, only this time it'll come up in Microsoft Excel. So you give it a file name. We'll call it Revenue and Expense Report. So in Denali, when you save that file to Excel, then it puts that in your install folder for your Denali program. We can go ahead and bring that up here, Denali Revenue and Expense Report, right there. You can also type in the path or cut and paste the path from the Explorer here when you're running the report in Denali. That way you can save it wherever you want that to save. Now if I open this report, you see this is the same report we just ran in Denali, only this time it's run in Excel now. But being in Excel, now we've got Excel's functions we can use. If we wanted to throw in a formula to add information or sort the information however we want to do it in Excel, you can do that. That's the easiest and simplest way to send the information to Microsoft Excel. However, because it's still in the report format with the layout and the fonts like they are, it might not be quite as workable as if you were going to run the same information in just a spreadsheet format. So the second option that Denali has for working with Excel is the Spreadsheet Export. With the Spreadsheet Export, this will send, let's run the same report here. We're going to run it just for the administration fund. And I'm only going to run my revenue and expense accounts. So we're going to start with account number 4000, 1 through 13 to get my first year. Just the actual information. I can also send the budget information over and the encumbrance for fund accounting as well if needed. So we're going to send that to our Excel, and when we export this, now as you can see, it pops it right into Excel in a nice, neat spreadsheet format. It doesn't look as nice as it did on the report format, but it's more workable because each column is your column header, and now we have each column as needed in here, plus we've got all of our accounts, including the ones with 0 balances. And we can now use this information as we need to create and design our own custom Excel reports now that the information has been exported to Excel. One of the things I wanted to point out here is that you also have the report classes. The report class is basically a code that Denali assigns to each account, which is our report groups, that it's assigned to each account. And opening up a new spreadsheet within the same workbook, you can tell Excel to pull all the accounts from a specific report class group or report group and total those on one number, then pull all the accounts from a different group and total them on one number using the advanced features of Excel and the formulas that Excel has to offer to create those reports. Now, I'm not as big of an expert in Excel as some of you out there might be, so I'm not quite skilled enough to show you how to do that in Excel itself. But suffice it to say that Denali can export the information to Excel, and then you can use Excel as needed to get the information you want. Report Group 2 can also be used for the same purpose once it's exported to Excel. And also Report Group 3, which we don't have any groups set up, but you can set up a customized Report Group 3 and put your own codes in there for whatever you want those codes to be. That's what Group 3 is for. Switching back to Denali, I can show you that real quick. When you're setting up your user-defined classifications, this is specifically for Report Group 3. Now, I don't know if I have any set up. Nope, I don't. So I could put my own Report Group 3 in here. Custom group. Custom report group. And I can create as many of these as I would like to do. All you need is a code and a description. Now you can apply that to your general ledger accounts as needed. So if we go to our 4,000 accounts here, bring up our first one here, I now have an option on Report Group 3 that I have just created. So I can create as many of these custom groups as I would like to, and that is specifically used for the Excel export, and those groups will fill in here in this column here. That way, if the groups that are included in 1 and 2 do not have what you need, you can create your own custom groups for Group 3. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our report groups in Denali here. The report groups are set up. Group 1 and 2 are predefined groups that Denali sets up, and that's the columns in Group 1 and 2 that you saw in Excel. Group 1 sales, for this account here, that would represent this particular group. INC1 is the code for the sales group 1 in the report group 1 here. So by selecting the most appropriate category for each account as you're setting up your chart of accounts, you must set up group 1 for every account in order to use the advanced classified reports and the comparative classified reports. This group right here will group the accounts together in these groups to give you the information you want on the report by group, and it gives you group totals as well. So it's a great way to get the reports you need right here in Denali without ever having to export to Excel. You can just group your accounts together in Group 1. Group 2 is used specifically for the cash flow report in Denali. That's the only thing that Group 2 is for, is cash flow reports. But again, you would still use group to choose the most appropriate category for that group. Specifically, if the account does not apply to a cash flow report, you can leave group 2 blank. But group 1 is required in order to run your classified income statements and balance sheet reports on all your accounts. So when you create the accounts, you select the most appropriate category for the group, and then when you run the report, so let's go back to our revenue and expense report. The one I was showing you before was only a report. It was the basic revenue and expense report, just the simple one. Now what we can do is we can take a look at the classified report because we have set up our group 1 in all of our accounts. And you'll see how this works here when the report comes up. So instead of just revenue, expenses, and then net revenue over expense, now we have our groups. We have our sales group. Then we have our total in the sales group. And if I had any other accounts set up in other groups with transactions posted to those accounts, you would see those other groups listed as well. To show you that, I can uncheck skip zero balance. Now we'll see all accounts, even if they did not have any activity. So now we have our sales groups, including accounts with 0 activity, as you can see here. Total for the sales group, and I have a separate group, sales discounts. That's a different group, but it's under its own category. And then we have a total for that group. Then we have our net sales revenue. You would also have other categories such as fundraising revenue if we had accounts set up for that. Now we've got our expense groups. The first one is our cost of goods sold. You scroll down and we have our net cost of goods sold. What's nice about the classified report is you get a line that says the gross operating profit, or loss in this case, unfortunately. That is your sales minus cost of goods sold. That gives you the gross profit. And when you go on down, you've got your other operating expenses and selling expenses and so forth. So you don't need Excel to create these reports. You can group your accounts together just using the report group in group 1 to get the different groups that you need. Public support, fundraising, there's a good group there for the nonprofits. And then we have other income, other expenses. And then it's the same report, only it's classified and grouped together. So at the bottom we have a grand total of net revenues over expenses. That is what group 1 is for. It's for running these special report types in here. Without group 1, all you can run is your detail, summary, or comparative detail. But you can have the special classified report or comparative classified that shows you the information you're looking for that's grouped together. The comparative classified shows the previous year in comparison to the current year. But without the group 1 established, you would not be able to run these classified reports. Same with the balance sheet report. You must have the group 1 selected on all accounts to run the classified reports. Group 1 is also used in our nonprofit suite to run the FASB reports here. These are specially designed reports that are specific to nonprofit organizations for fund accounting. So if we run a statement of activities, which is essentially the same thing as an income statement or a profit and loss, a revenue and expense statement for the same periods, then it shows us the same information in a special FASB report format. Our FASB report format has these categories instead of each individual account listed. It has these categories that are determined based on the group 1 setting. And then you also have your unrestricted, temporary restricted, or restricted columns based on the account restriction type that you have set up in the account setup. Now again, this is only available in the nonprofit accounting system from Denali. If you're using the regular for-profit accounting system, you will not have this option to run this report. The groups are available in the for-profit, but the special FASB reports are only available in nonprofit. Okay, so another options that you can do in Denali is, let's run our same report again, only this time let's use the account filter. This is another way you can set up a report to show only the information you want without having to put it into Excel first. So you can run this report, same period. Let's go to period 13. We're using 13 periods in our nonprofit here. This time I'm going to use the account filter, and I'm going to filter out anything that doesn't have an account number that ends in ADMN, which is our administration fund. You can also use the account filter for this segment here. If I wanted to leave this one blank, I could put like segment 00 for this one, and it'll show me all accounts, but only accounts that have a 00 in the middle segment. Or perhaps I just want to see revenue accounts on this report and not expense accounts. So I know all of my revenue accounts are 4, or my special classification of revenue starts with a 4. So now by using the account filter, I'm only going to see a report that shows my revenue accounts, or all of my accounts that begin with the number 4. Now, of course, since I did not filter out the fund, it's going to show this for all funds. But let's take a look and you'll see how this works. So now, as you can see, here is all of my revenue accounts with information. I told it to skip 0 balance, so any accounts that did not have any postings won't show up on this report. And that's all I'm seeing is accounts that begin with the 4 right here, because that's what I put in the account filter. Everything else was filtered out on that first digit. But everything else that was question marks are still included, because that's my wildcards. So now we have a total for all revenue accounts that are included in this report. And then we have a net revenue over expenses, which is the same thing as our total, since I filtered out all of my expense accounts on this report. But as you can see, we don't need to export this information to Excel and then use Excel's formulas to filter the information out, which is a lot more complex than just simply putting in an account filter setting here. So that is your account filter that lets you set that up. But suppose you have your accounts arranged to where the account filter is not going to work for you because they're not numbered like you need them, but you still need to have a report that shows only specific information that you're looking for. Denali has a very nice feature called the Advanced Report Groups. And I'm going to pull that up here. This allows you to group accounts together in your own advanced groups that you decide what is going to be included in that group. What accounts do I want to include in that report group? So let's open up one of my groups here. I have set up some groups here. For example, my operating expenses for the administration fund. I've set up a group that only includes accounts that shows my operating expenses. It doesn't show any payroll expenses, or it doesn't show any fundraising or selling expenses. It's only the operating expense accounts in this group. I also have the same group set up for those other. We have grants paid out. That's another expense group that I've got these accounts grouped together in this one group here. I also have a payroll expense group. So I have 3 different expense groups for my administration fund, along with some revenues groups, revenue and expense admission. That's my main report group. So here's my revenue group, sales admission. That's my revenue group. If I select that, I've got these 4 accounts, and these are the only accounts that I have included in that revenue for my administration fund. And then I take those subgroups and I combine them into a main report group, and I call that revenue and expense administration. That is a special. These are all of my subgroups that I created. My 2 top ones here are my revenues, and my 3 bottom ones here are my expenses. So I've designed these groups together so I can build my own custom report based on these groups, and I don't have to use Excel for this. So let's run a report using this advanced group, REC admin, revenue expense admin. It's going to be our same revenue and expense report. Run it for the same period, 1 through 13. I'm going to uncheck that so you see all accounts, print account number. But this time I'm going to use my advanced report groups that I have designed. Now I can use any one of these groups to get a report of just those accounts I've set up for those subgroups, or I can run the main report group, REAdmin, which is a combination of those 5 subgroups combined into one main group here. So let's take a look at this report and see what it looks like. And notice how this pops up. I didn't have to use Excel for this. I just put in the groups in Denali, and now my report has these groups that I have set up, my own custom advanced report groups that I have set up, and the accounts under those groups. And then we have a total for that group right there. I have another group that I have customized myself called sales. And I've got all the accounts under that group, and there's my total for sales. Now I don't have any income for this period for that group, so it's just 0. But it shows me what the income I do have for those accounts there. And then I have another group, sales discounts. This is still under my sales group, but because report group 1 on the account was set up differently, it separates it out under a main report group 1 group. Because sales discounts do need to be in a separate category than the revenue. A discount is usually a negative revenue. It reduces your revenue. Now I didn't have any for that period, so we're okay there. And then we have our expense groups, the 3 expense groups. I've got grants paid out, I've got payroll expenses, and I've got operating expenses. And these are all the accounts totaled under those groups. However, these accounts that are under these groups here are also under my administrative in the group 1 setting for each account. So this is my custom group that I've made, but in group 1 I've set it up as an administrative expense. So that groups those all together. But you still have your custom group totals, and aside from that you've got the main group total as well. There's your administrative group total here. Now in group 1 on my account setup, another group option I have is selling expenses. And then I've got my own custom groups under selling expenses. And then my payroll. This is my custom group, payroll, and this is the total for that group. Operating, and the total for operating for accounts that are set up under selling expenses in group 1. So by setting up your advanced report groups, you don't need Microsoft Excel. You can group accounts together and get the totals however you want. What else is nice about advanced report groups is you can actually design your own report when you're setting up the groups, that if you don't want to print all of your accounts on the report, you just want to see totals, then we can bring up our main report group that I've set up. Here's our main report group. And I can say, when I run this report, I only want to see the group totals. I don't want to see all the individual accounts. So you can group accounts together and get a line item total on your report for that. So now, when I'm running that report, same report. Since I'm not using I'll check the box anyway, but since I'm doing group totals, we shouldn't see any account numbers. All right. So this report will show me the same information, but it just shows me the group totals instead of all the account numbers. So there's my line item for that group total there. There's my line item for the group total here under sales. And then under my expenses, see, here's my grants. There's my 3 expense groups. And then my total for those 3 expense groups, and my total for accounts set up under administrative in group 1. Under selling expenses, I've got my 3 groups again, only this time I'm only using 2 because the 3rd group did not get used under the selling expense group. So that way you can design your own custom reports to show you the lines that you want printed on the report, and it's just a summary total of all accounts that are in that group. All right, so the final topic that I wanted to discuss is with Denali, we are actually directly partnered and integrated with the Crystal Reports application. Crystal Reports is a newer software application that allows you to design your own custom reports that directly accesses the databases for your accounting software to get the numbers on those reports that you need. And any reports you run in Denali are already pre-designed for you in Crystal Reports. When you purchase Denali and install it on your system, it comes pre-installed with hundreds of reports that are pre-designed for you, and they're all in the Crystal Reports format. However, because we are using Crystal Reports format, then you can use your own format. You can go into Crystal Reports yourself if you have that software and custom design your own reports. And when you do that, Denali has a nice feature in the controller here that you can install your own custom reports. So I've got 3 custom reports that I have installed to run my revenue and expense information from my Denali software. So this is the report that Denali has, the revenue and expense report, and then this is the file of the custom report that I have built in Crystal Reports. And then I also give it a file name. Now, I didn't really build these because I don't have the knowledge of Crystal. We actually do have an expert here at Cougar Mountain that is proficient in Crystal Reports, and he can actually design these reports for you if needed. But you can you give the report a name, and now, since we've got 3 reports that are installed for the same report that I'm running in General Ledger, when I go into General Ledger to run that report, I now have the option to choose which format, which custom report I want to run it with by selecting this box here, and then I just choose one of the 3 that I have installed as a custom report. And so by doing that, your possibilities are basically unlimited of what you want to show up on the reports, what the reports look like, the design, the font, different columns. However you want to design that report is entirely up to you, and the possibilities are unlimited with that. Okay, so with that, that basically shows you that Denali is a very powerful resource in getting the custom reports that you need, because just like anything else, any other accounting software you're using, the accounting software is only as good as the reports you can pull out of it and the information you can pull from the transactions that are posted. That is what our goal is here at Cougar Mountain, is to make sure that you have a packaged software that gives you all of the possibilities and reporting options you need to give you the accurate information you need from your accounting system. All right, so with that, I just wanted to remind everyone that we do have our next webinars coming up. We'll go ahead and bring that up here. And while that's coming up, let me just bring up the questions here. We'll answer the questions while we're waiting for the website coming up here. If I can get my questions to come up here. There we go. All right. So let's see what we're looking at here. So I'm going to jump to your questions first, and then I'll go over the next webinars coming up. Okay, a question from Laura. When you run comparative detail revenue and expense and check skip 0 box, the report does not calculate correctly if there is a total in the prior year and no total in the current year. I believe this is a known issue and are being addressed in, it looks like a ticket that has been opened with Denali. Do you know if the fix will be available in the next quarterly release? Laura, that is a good question. I can double check on that and have your account representative follow up with you. I am not sure what the plan is on that. To be honest with you, I haven't heard of that issue myself, so I'll double check on that and make sure that you're informed. All right, here's a question from Bill. Can I run the standard Denali income expense report that will default to my group 3 categories instead of standard group 1 categories? Bill, the group 3 categories are only used for the Microsoft Excel export. That is the only thing group 3 is for. If you want to run a custom report in Denali for specific groups, that's what you would use the advanced report groups that I was showing you and group your accounts together in there. And it looks like that's the only questions I have for this webinar today. So I wanted to remind everyone, coming up in our next webinar, this one's really exciting. We're going to be doing a special webinar from the special webinar series here on June 17th. That's the next webinar coming up. What we're going to do is we're going to illustrate the new job cost module that's coming out for Denali. So any of you that are interested in job cost, if you're in the manufacturing or construction industry, or any industry actually, because you can use job cost to cost out, to keep track of job costing activities for any industry, we've got a really good module that we've designed from the ground up to help you keep track of your job costing activity, and also the revenue from specific jobs and projects as well. So be sure to check us out next week, June 17th. It'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time right here at the same location, right here on the internet. Be sure to tune in for that. It'll be a great presentation that we'll be able to show you with the Denali job cost module coming out. And then we've got some additional webinars that we've got coming up here, so make sure that you check those out as well. Let's see, we're going to go back one more. Okay, June 24th, taking the manual out of sales tax processing. That's another new feature coming up in a newer release of Denali, the AvaTax system. And then July 1st will be our regular monthly webinar, 7 different ways to discount in Denali. So be sure to tune in for those webinars. We'll be sure to have a great presentation for you there. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and give your sales rep a call at the number on your screen there, or visit our website at cougarmountain.com.